Good morning. Hello. Welcome. This is, whoops, let me just adjust that a bit. This is my Home Biz Tips. TIPS stands for Tools and Ideas that Provide Success. I am Andrea Kuchin, and today I'm going to talk about one of the most important skills that you can acquire, inspired by a book I'm reading. And then at the end, I'm going to make an offer, which my team have told me is absolutely nuts, totally crazy, utterly ridiculous. However, I'm going to do it anyway. So I won't keep you very long, but let's talk about changing your mind. So I've read hundreds, I was going to say thousands, but that might be a bit of an exaggeration, hundreds of books over the years about personal development and growth and enhancement, whatever you would like to call it. And there's always more to learn. But what all the books I've read seem to have in common is the idea that you can change anything in your life by changing your thought patterns, which most people associate with being in your mind. Apparently they're not. Apparently your thoughts don't actually happen in your mind. That's just the only place we think we can connect them, and that's where the electrical activity is. But apparently your thoughts happen somewhere else, sort of 3 feet back of your head, some people say. Anyway, that's taking it a little bit too far in the direction of nutty and being crazy, and I like to be very practical in this. I might be a little bit woo-woo in my own world, but in my business environment, I like to be very practical. However, I have noticed, talking to people recently, that there are issues with the way people think or the way their thoughts are encouraging them to operate. The environment that their thinking system is creating that are not helping them move forward. So I want to talk about that for a little bit, because we forget how valuable it is being able to control our thoughts so that we create the results that we want, right? Because one of the first exercises I do with people when I work with them is to figure out what it is they want to achieve. And then we break that down into steps. So, and I've probably given this example before, it's a little bit like if you are a student and you're given a book to read at school or at university and you have to write an essay on it. Say the book is 1,000 pages. Say you're given 4 weeks. I was going to say 30 days, but it isn't 30 days. Say you were given 4 weeks to read it. That would actually be 20 days, wouldn't it? 25, 10, 20, yeah, that would be 20 days. So you're dividing this book into 4 weeks. So the first thing is you've got 1,000 pages that you're going to divide into 4 weeks. So 1,000 divided by 4 is 250, right? 250 divided by the 5 days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, would be 50 pages a day, right? So you now know in order to get the book finished in time, you need to read minimally 5 days, 50 pages a day, 5 days a week, if you're not going to work weekends. But that gives you the advantage of, if for some reason you missed it during the week, you've got catch-up time. You can plot exactly how much catching up you need to do because you know exactly how far behind you are and how much you've got left to do. The converse would also be true, that if you had leaped ahead, if you were jumping ahead in leaps and bounds, you would know how early you're going to finish, how much more time you'll have for writing your essay or doing your research, or yes, you will be able to go away for a 4-day weekend in the middle of this this reading period because you know you've planned in advance. That's what I teach. But what I'm coming up against is things like, but it's too difficult, but I can't do that every day. But what if something goes wrong? Or, oh, but I've never been able to do that kind of thing. Or money's always been an issue in my family. Or I couldn't possibly charge that much. I'm not worth that much. For example, these are the kind of things that come up. You know, I don't want to take so much of a risk. I don't want to invest my time. I don't trust myself to get it done. I can't figure this out. It's too difficult. I've tried the things like this so many times before and they never work. Everyone I know says this isn't going to work. I have one word. Please don't be offended. I have one word to describe those thoughts. Rubbish. Rubbish. It's rubbish. I'll translate that into American. Garbage. It's garbage. It's absolutely not true. But what it is doing is feeding itself, right? But my family has never had enough money. The more you say that, the more you make it real. Because you know what you're doing when you speak? It's like a kind of prayer, right? And God or the universe or whoever it is listening. Oh, okay. So let me take my notebook here. Let's write that down. Andrea's asking for her family always to have money problems. I've never had good health. She wants never to have good health, right? That is what you are creating. I know it sounds nuts, but I keep and keep and keep coming up across scientific evidence to show this is real. Okay, this isn't biology. This is physics. This is quantum physics, in fact. It's the stuff that we know is true, even though we can't see it. And unfortunately, even though we know that there are things that work, even though we don't understand them and can't see them, we still, for some reason, won't believe them. Look at, what's this? Look at this. What's this? It's a phone. Do you have one? Yeah, I have one too. Can you see how these phones connect to each other? Can you see what happens when I make a call? When you were kids growing up and your parents had a radio, well, some of you might not be quite that old, but do you remember having a radio? It was a little box and you would switch it on and then move this metal thing around a bit and then, oh, there's a clear signal. Could you see how that happened? Would you sit there and honestly, convincingly tell me that there isn't any such thing as a radio wave and it couldn't possibly work? No, it would be ridiculous. Why? Because we've had radios in every single country on the planet for at least 100 years, if not longer. We've had mobile phones almost certainly in every country on the planet. There are mobile phones. And there have been in most places for 20 years, 25 years in some instances. So would you try to say to me, a mobile phone couldn't possibly work because you can't see how it operates? No, you wouldn't. It would be nuts. It wouldn't make sense. It doesn't matter that you can't see it operates. It doesn't matter that you don't know why this thing rings when I call you, or why it goes ping when somebody sends me a message. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you can't see how it works or what it works with or where the radio waves are that come into the phone to make it work. Doesn't matter. This body, this physical body that you sit in is the same as a phone and a radio. Okay, I've probably lost half of you by now. Watch it again in the replay. it might make sense, might make more sense to you. This body resonates at an electrical frequency, the same as this does and the same as the radio does. The electronic frequency that comes out of this phone allows it to connect with the electronic frequency on your phone so that we can talk. That's basically how it works. Now, out in the world, somewhere on this planet, is something called universal energy, God, original chi. I don't know what you call it, but there is an energy in this planet that makes things happen. It's the energy of life. It's the same energy, if you like, that that's in a seed pod. Have you ever planted seeds or bought beans in the supermarket and put them on water on a sort of little piece of kitchen roll on a plate, and you've kept it damp and they start to grow? Where does that energy come from? They don't have batteries. So where's the energy that creates that growth? Where's the energy that makes my hair grow? Where does that come from? Okay, so that energy, that life energy, is everywhere, and it's listening to you. And it's on a frequency. It's on a really, really, really high frequency, the highest frequency that can be created by a living being, a living creature. It's the energy of love. It's the highest frequency there is, right? That's where that sits. Now, every time you say something, you speak something, or you think something, even if you hear it yourself or don't hear it yourself, because you'd be amazed how many thoughts you have that you don't even hear yourself because you're not listening. But the universal law, the universe, God, they are listening and they hear you. So when you're putting out messages like, I'm too old, I'm too fat, I'm too thin, I'm too short, I don't have any confidence, I've never been good at that sort of thing, I've always been broke, I've never been lucky, they are prayers. They are asking the universe to provide what you're talking about. You might not know, you might not believe, makes no difference to me, but apparently that's what you're doing. So you have to change your mind. You have to stop thinking like that and flip it over. I've always been lucky. I'm in the perfect place in life to do whatever it is that I want to do. Nothing frightens me. It doesn't matter if I'm frightened, I'll do it anyway. That might be an easier step. Okay. There is abundance. I always have more than enough money. I've always had really good health. My family is so lucky. Whatever it is, turn it round the other way. Turn it round. Change your mind. The value of this is absolutely, utterly, and completely immeasurable. If you could count it, you'd run out of zeros. There is so much value in this one simple step. And how complicated does it sound? Change your mind. Okay. So if we're going with the fact that thoughts don't actually happen in your head or in your mind, it's think differently. Think differently. That doesn't mean don't think the same way as your friend or have different thoughts from your boss or your business partner. Doesn't mean that. What it means is think differently from the way that you've been thinking up to now. Okay? There is science that proves that this happens. I remember my brother telling me, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago, that he'd been reading a book, which I believe is called The Dancing Wu Li Masters. And in that book, they explain that there are certain scientific experiments that have been done by physicists, and they have actually figured out that the result of the experiment depends on the expectation of the person conducting the experiment. What? That means that when the scientist conducting the experiment expects it to go one way, it does. If the scientist expects it to go a different way, it does. This is absolutely mind-blowing, earth-shattering news. But it is scientific evidence. And there are a lot of places that this is written. The same information is written. And if a lot of people are saying the same thing, you know what that means? It's probably true. So I'm going with the fact that it is true. I'm going with, I don't mind what word we're going to use to refer to that universal life-giving energy. I'm happy to call it God. I'm happy to call it the universal law. I'm happy to call it the life-giving energy. I don't mind. I also don't mind where we consider our thoughts are, whether they're in our minds or behind our heads or coming out through the soles of our feet. I really don't mind. None of that matters. What I'm going to focus on right now is the fact that there are voices in my head that I don't like the sound of. There are voices I can hear speaking, put it that way, that I don't like the sound of. And it's an almost Herculean effort for me to turn that round. I don't think I can do this. Ooh, well, so-and-so did it, and they're not any cleverer than me, and so-and-so did it, and if it's been done by other people, then I probably can, and I'm actually fairly clever, and I can hear myself saying those things, but I can still hear the other voice in the background going, yeah, right, yeah, right. So there are certain things that I really need to work on. So I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to work on a particular book, and I might work on a different book later or a different book later. So I'm not going to tell you exactly which book it is, but I want to work with 3 people to be my team, my support team, my accountability partners in this process. So that is my ridiculous offer. And I tell you, my team think I'm absolutely crazy, but I have a reason for doing this. And the reason is I want to see how easily it can be done so that I can teach it better. And if it's only me doing the experiment, I've only got my own experience, and I want to have the experience of other people. Now, I definitely want this to be an equal group so that we can form pairs which can be moved around, right? So sometimes you'll work with someone else in the group. Sometimes you'll work directly with me. I want four people in total, me and 3 others. I don't want it to be any bigger at this stage. So you don't have much time to decide whether you're going to participate in this with me or not. I'm thinking it will probably be a 6-month project. And I am not intending charging for it. What? I know, crazy. But I'm not intending charging for it. If we go off in a different direction, maybe I will. If it overlaps with the coaching I'm already doing, I'll have to think about that. But my intention right now, because this is one particular exercise I'm doing, is to do it for free. So if you are interested in participating in this experiment, because that is what it is an experiment. It is definitely not a training or anything like that. It is an experiment, and I'm searching frantically here for my email address there. Email me, right? Email me, or go to my calendar and book an appointment to talk to me about it, because I'd kind of like to interview the people so that I find people who really work well together as a group, because my intention is that this group of 4 people will be moving around. We won't be each other's same partner the whole time. So sometimes you'll be working directly with me, sometimes you won't. And you will be required to buy the book, right? You can get an electronic version if you want to. It might not be very expensive. But whichever book it is I decide finally that we're going to use, I am going to expect you to buy the book. So you will have an investment. And then there will be a certain amount of time, and we'll figure it out as we're going along. And I think 6 months is a fair amount of time to make some really dramatic changes. But if we find that 3 months later, we look back at ourselves and think, holy cow, I'm nowhere near the person that I used to be because I've changed so much, we might finish it then and go on and do other things. Okay? But that's what I'm looking for. Wow. So let's go back to the beginning. The value of changing your mind is the fact that when you think differently from the way that you have been thinking up to this point, your life can change. It cannot change if you continue to believe it is the way that it is and think accordingly. You change your mind when you think differently. So instead of all the negative self-talk that you have going around in your mind constantly, if you're anything like me, and you have to put a lot of effort into changing that on a daily basis, we're going to see if we can learn a way of speeding that process up. And I am looking for 3 people to join with me so that we will have a group of 4 that will meet on a regular basis, which we'll figure out. We'll be each other's accountability partners. Sometimes you'll work directly with me. Sometimes you'll work with one of the other people in the group. There is a commitment to a minimum of 3 months, possibly going to 6 months. You have to buy the book and you have to be at the appointments that you're at. So if you have a voice that tells you, oh, I'm so badly organized, I could never do that, call me or reach out to me right now. I don't think I've got my phone number on here. Reach out to me right now. You can email me there. You can book an appointment to talk to me there. Actually, I think if you book the appointment, you'll get what the telephone number is. I will create one of these with the telephone number on it. Okay, so reach out to me. I'll put that email back there. Or join my Facebook group and you'll see me in the Facebook group and you can private message me there. Okay, but here's the email address. Reach out to me, because if you're thinking, yay, that's a great idea, but, and all this rubbish is bombarding you, then you are the perfect person to do this with me. The worse position you're in right now, the more important it is that you and I talk. Okay? So reach out. I'm serious about this. I'm looking for 3 people to do this with me, to change their mind so they can change their life. And yes, I probably did get that from somebody else, and I don't know who it was, so I'm very sorry. That, my friends, is all I have for you for this week. Thank you so much for joining me here. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Cheerio!